of this, and what I mean by let go, and what I mean by make time, and what I mean by follow through, I want to tell you what I'm not going to be able to do for you in the next 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to be able to pick a genre for you. Just can't do it. You're going to find of anything that you'll find out about the creative process, you're going to have to write about what motivates you. You can't look at the bestseller list, figure out, hey, what's popular right now? Vampires, zombies, romance novels, terrorist novels. You have to write what is personal to you, because in the end, no matter what I say about these things today, the topic, your characters, the plot, the emotion, that's what's going to get you up every morning. Times bestseller list. You're not going to get up in the morning because you want your book to be made into a movie. Those are all great. You make a lot of money that way, a lot of fame and fortune that way. You can quit your day job because of that. But it's not going to get you up in the morning when you are a mere amateur. Okay? That's what I'm not going to be able to do for you. I'm not going to be able to tell you here. If you maybe have watched anything on YouTube about people talking about writing their first novel, usually they start with number 2. You got to make the time, because we're all so busy. We're all so busy. We have kids, we're married, we have 2 jobs. We have to travel here, we have to travel there, we have to cut the grass. There's all of these everyday activities that are very important. And so a lot of people are going to start with, you need to make the time. You need to get up early in the morning. You need to get less sleep. You have to put off this, put off that. I'm going to talk about that. But the reason that I don't think that is number 1 is because what I want to avoid is you going through all of that, figuring out, coming up with a new schedule, and you get up at 5:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning. For example, like John Grisham used to do when he was starting out. He was a lawyer. He used to get up early in the morning to write. That's how he did it, finally coming up with his first best-selling novel, The Firm. But here's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid you doing all of that planning and then sitting down at the computer, or if you're going to do it the old-fashioned way with a pencil and a piece of paper, novels are still written that way, and nothing comes out. First of all, you have to let go. What do you have to let go of? You have to let go of your inhibitions, and this is going to be tough, because there are going to be people in your ears telling you, you're how old and you're going to start writing your first novel? Really? Really? Are you really going to do that? Well, isn't that meant for younger people? You're going to write about what? Nobody wants to read a book about that. You're going to do what? And there are going to be people in your life who think that they care about you, and they're going to try to talk you out of it. And they're going to feed on your inhibitions. They're going to feed on your fear. And I don't say this, I'm not saying you should dislike those people or put those people out of your life. But you are going to have to let go of your inhibitions to write. And that's going to be very difficult, because what do we do also in our everyday lives? Before we go out, that you have, every thought that you have has to be right there, easy to pick out at a moment's notice. That is what's going to get you sitting down at the computer, and that's what's going to make you write on that first morning. You're going to put all of that stuff out of your head. You're not going to think about the negativity, maybe how stupid it is, because this is not easy. If writing books and making money were easy, everybody would be doing it. Everybody. Because it can be a great life. You go off somewhere, you're a well-known author, you go off maybe to Canada somewhere to some isolated lake, a nice little cabin to write your next novel. Who wouldn't want to have a life like that? Everybody would. No rat race, no suits who talk to newbies about writing novels. this is what they come up with first. We just got to make the time. If it's important to you, you got to make the time. And we realize that's very important in our lives and everything else that we do. If you want to date somebody, you got to make the time. If you want to take on a new hobby, you got to make the time. If you want to have kids, you got to make the time. Well, writing is the same thing. The problem is, now I'd never tell you to put your novel in front of your kids. I'd never tell you to put your novel in front of your wife or your husband. I'd never tell you to do that, okay? But here's what I do know, is that for you to be able to, if you are in those sort of circumstances, now for me, it's a little bit easier. I'm just a single guy out here. But if you are in those circumstances, here's what I do know though. To be able to make time, those people who are most important to your life, who you are under the same roof with them, they are going to have to buy in to your desire, not as much as you do, but they're going to have to understand it. And you're going to find, once those people understand your passion, making time will be easier. Now, sorry, but that bowling league, it's probably going to have to put off to the side for the next 6 months. That's just the way it is. Maybe you get together with some of your buddies before you go to work in the morning. Maybe at like 6:30 in the morning, you meet some guys at a local Dunkin' Donuts and you talk about sports or politics or whatever your hobbies are. You know what? Those people are going to have to understand that you have something that right now is more important than they are. Now, what do I mean by following through? Well, it's easy once you let go and once you make time, it's easy to just put down all of those words on the page. And that's all you're going to be doing for how many months. And once again, I can't tell you the pattern at which you should be writing. How many words a day, how many times a week, how long it's going to take. That would depend on the genre. That would depend on how much time you truly can devote to writing your novel. It encompasses a lot of things. But all I know is whether it's going to take 2 months or it's going to take 10 months, that you're logging words. And hopefully, through all that, you're making sense. Now, what I mean by following through, getting to step 3 is, after you do all that, you have to realize that's really just the beginning. You have to go back to step 1 and convince yourself again that what you're doing is important. You don't want to stay away from it that long, where you have to also go through step 2 of making time just to edit it. Because what you're going to be doing is, what I found is that the editing process is way more difficult than the writing process. Because in the editing process, you're doing exactly the opposite of what you were doing with the writing. In that you're trying to make it right. Well, remember what I talked about. We're all familiar with that novel, how it looks so perfect. Well, now is going to be in the follow-through stage, is that you're going to be getting it right. And you're going to need help. You're not going to be able to get through that book and get it to a bookshelf by yourself. And the reason I say following through is that you don't want to let all that work go by the wayside. It's so easy for us to get caught up in a project and then let it go. We get 3/4 of the way through something and we get tired. Maybe some circumstances change in our life. And then we figure, well, maybe that novel wasn't as important as I thought. And that book wasn't important as I thought. And that topic wasn't important as I thought. I thought I was going to change the world, and now I'm not so sure. I was all motivated, wrote those 150,000 words, and now I'm not so sure that those were the 150,000 words that I should wrote. You should not start to doubt yourself once you get done. And that's why once you get done, you should be thinking about following through.